Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Circuit Stream's Meet Your Instructor series. This is part 4, I think. My name is Arcadius or Arky. I'm the student experience coordinator here at Circuit Stream, and today, on this wonderful Friday, I am joined by the stellar Mitchell Theriault, and you may call him Mitch. Hello, Mitch.
Hi, how's it going, Arky?
Good. My doggy wants to fuss, so I'm
Featuring dog.
yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Arthur. Hey,
Arthur.
you have a dog as well, don't you?
I do. Technically more my mom's dog, so it's not here with me, but he's still my dog.
Family dog.
Yeah,
What's his
family
name?
dog. Rudy. He's a Labrador retriever, which is adorable.
Sweetie. Oh, I already see David in the chat. Hi, Mitch. Hey, David. Okay, so as most of you know who have watched the previous installments here, this is just meant to be a casual conversation, get to know Mitch a bit better. And I feel like you and I are, I don't know, I feel like we're two peas in a pod simply because we started at Circuit Stream at the same time.
Same day.
Yeah, we had the same first day. So I feel like you and I have been,
Yeah, for sure. We're like, I don't know. We're employee siblings or something. We're linked somehow.
Kindred spirits here.
Yeah. So, we also both have an artsy background, so I think that might be part of it.
We do. That's the other thing that excites me about chatting with you, because we both have an artistic background. Yours is still more tech than mine. Hey, you come closer to me and be good. Okay, so let's get into that, actually. Yes. What were you doing before Circuit Stream?
So right immediately before Circuit Stream, I was working at a company that made XR experiences using Unity, which is a pretty, that transition to Circuit Stream makes sense, but I think my total journey in general is a little bit more interesting because I got started in film school. So I always wanted to be I've always been really technical, but I've also been felt very compelled to create things at the same time. For as long as I can remember, I've always been somewhat of an artist, and I wanted to be an animator. That was like my first job that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a cartoonist, but I realized I kind of suck at drawing. So my dreams of getting into the Sheridan animation program probably weren't going to work out. So I realized that and sort of pivoted at a really young age. This is like maybe like 13 or something, into still telling stories visually, but doing that with a video camera instead. So filming dumb skits with my buddies. And I had a lot of fun doing that. So I pursued that and went to film school, Sheridan's media arts program here in Oakville. Well, I'm not in Oakville. I'm in Hamilton, but pretty close. And on campus, I got to try the Oculus DK1 in my last year, which was like the very first virtual reality headset I think that a lot of people actually got to try. That was out in the wild, which was insanely cool. It's primitive by today's standards, but I feel like I sort of saw the future there in that demo, and I wanted to pursue that. And Sheridan had this this research institute or something. I'm not sure if it still exists, but they basically had a big film hangar out in Toronto where they just researched like emerging technologies like motion capture and virtual reality and things like that, which I thought was so awesome. And I wanted to work there and do my internship, and they wouldn't take me. But
rude. Totally rude.
Yeah, but how dare they? But my in my craftiness, I was kind of like looking up, like, okay, what clients do they work with? Like, who are their business partners? And I found a company that was working on virtual reality experiences, and also they were creating Unity plugins, your Unity assets at the time, to um, create basically cinematics, like film sequences inside the Unity engine, which wasn't so much of a thing back then. Now there's a lot of tools for that, but back then it was more novel and cool. And I was just like cold called, hey, do you need like a marketing guy? And I somehow landed an internship there. And that's sort of how I got started with Unity. So I had to start making these tutorials and marketing materials for these products. And I didn't know anything about Unity. I've always been a big fan of video games, and I didn't really have much formal experience programming. So I
Do you know what? I want to interrupt you for a second, and I'm sorry to disrupt your flow, but I'm super curious. Why do you think your cold call was successful? What did you do that was special, do you think?
uh, that's a good question. It's been so long, but I
We
think
talk like we're old. Have you noticed that? We're always like,
well,
oh, back in the day. We're young people still.
we are, but getting to that point now, I'm talking about things like over a decade ago that were like things in my professional career.
Aging
So
millennials here.
yeah,
Anyways,
we're
go ahead.
starting to hit the tipping point of old. Nah, not really. Um, I think it was mostly dumb luck. They were probably well, I mean, I know they kind of had this gap in the very small company that I happened to fill perfectly. I in film school, uh I had kind of I tried to become the guy, like the go-to guy for visual effects and 3D and things like that, because that always interested me. So I knew a little bit about Blender and After Effects and a lot of things that are adjacent to the stuff, the work that we do with Unity. So a lot of that stuff transferred over. So I think my portfolio also kind of caught people's eye. It's like, hey, this is something that we could use. We did a lot of client-based work at that company too, making not just like VR applications, but a lot of just 2D videos out of CAD data and things like that. So I did have a lot of relevant experience, but the Unity stuff I was really new to. And I was fortunate enough to learn on the job from some very smart and talented people. And yeah, programming, though.
Yeah, about
I have
that.
an interesting relationship with programming. So, hmm, oh man, so retrospective. Um, let's see. It's okay if I just ramble, right? For the
Yeah.
duration of this, I'll keep going. Um, Programming. My earliest memories of programming. Um, I was a big fan of Flash. If you remember earlier internet, so like the early 2000s, there was this thing called Flash where you could embed experiences in a browser window. So there are sites like Newgrounds and MiniClip and Addicting Games where people basically made these awesome games out of this software and cartoons and things like that. Um, Homestar Runner is another big site I was a fan of, and they just basically made this stuff for free. These people, this was before mobile games, so I don't think there was like a really obvious avenue to make money with this stuff. I mean, there was advertising, but um, anyway, I was really fascinated with that, with people making these flash games, and I sort of self-taught myself um, that. So there's a programming language called ActionScript in there, and there's a lot of great resources online for learning learning that platform. Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a Flash dev, but I was one of those very young people sort of messing around with it and creating stuff. And I mean, yeah, I've always felt compelled to make things and put things out there. And Flash was a great avenue for that. And that was sort of my first attempt at learning how to program, was with Flash and ActionScript. And then later on in high school, later on in so this I learned Flash when I was in grade school. That was my first attempt at programming. And then in late high school, I was really set on the film thing, and I was never very academic either. All throughout school, I was sort of like, I don't know. I don't want to say I just coasted, but I was always more interested in teaching myself how to do things I was interested in and spending my time doing that.
Mhm. I
Um,
think that's also kind of an artistic mindset. That's not to say that people who are artistic can't be academic. I'm not saying that at all, but
mhm,
I know, like, I'll speak for myself. I was so into art in high school that it was like, well, am I gonna create this series and apply for art school and do this whole thing, or am I gonna try to get good grades? Like, who cares? You kind of something has got to give if you want to do really well artistically. So
mhm.
maybe it's a bit of that as well.
And I'm not advising not doing well in school either. We're definitely not doing that. You should try and get good marks, but try to tell that to teenager Mitchell. I didn't care. Um, and but I think that sort of mentality of learning how to teach myself has come in very handy. Um, and um, where was I going? Oh, high school. So in grade 12, so ending high school, I realized, hey, there's a programming class. But I don't have the prerequisite for it. But all my friends are in the grade 12 class, and I begged the teacher, uh, I don't know much about programming, but let me take this Java class. And the guy was like, all right, you're gonna struggle. And I took it, and it was super cool. That was like my first sort of formal look at object oriented programming, and kind of getting taught from scratch through an actual program for the first time. And that was like the best mark I got throughout high school, was this grade 12 programming class. So I really liked it. And I was, driven to actually teach myself and learn. And that was sort of my second attempt at programming. Then I went to film school, and then my third attempt at programming was when I had to learn Unity for my job, and had to create all of these tutorials that taught people how to use this Unity timeline-esque product. And I had to, that was kind of an interesting job, because I had to really make it seem like I knew what I was talking about to be able to market this stuff and show
Yeah.
people how to use it. But I,
Sales.
yeah, I, yeah, I didn't so much at the time. So I had to pick up those skills. And it helped that I worked with people who did know how to program in C# with Unity, and I could, ask them for advice, and sort of get pointed in the right direction there. But that only goes so far. Um, I feel like to learn any skill, including what we teach here at Circuit Stream, to really get good at it, you have to be able to iterate on your own things, and really really want to be able to do it, and just do it like it's your hobby. um Mm.
You bring up a really great point, and this is something that I've chatted with the other instructors about as well, is like our courses at Circus Stream are a beginner. But beginner doesn't always mean easy, easy, right? This is still really challenging material in general. So sometimes just like if you think about your learning as a ladder, sometimes rung one is like a way bigger leap than you thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And having that tenacity and that drive to be self-taught and also know where to seek out mentorship, because you don't have to do everything on your own, right? But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need to go out of your way to find the help that you need. It's just really cool to hear you're embodying the values that I try to impart upon our learners.
Yeah, I tried to make people more aware of that kind of thing. I think um oh, where was I going with that? Oh, it's left me. One of the hmm. Yeah, I need a prompt or something. I'll come back to what I was trying to
Friday
remember.
brain. It's Friday brain. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm checked out for the week.
Okay, I'll give you a prompt here. So let's fast forward a little bit. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're an instructor. So you went from being sounded like you were a bit clueless, as everyone is when they first start,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got it together. You learned a lot while working at this other company, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're teaching. So how did this come about? What made you want to be an instructor?
Mm-hmm. I remembered what I was going to say before. It's not that awesome, but the rungs on the ladder metaphor, I really liked. I feel like Unity could seem really intimidating, but if you can just get over like a few rungs of the ladder, you can make some pretty cool stuff. It's not like you have to, climb a whole mountain to be able to make, I don't know, some like crazy MMORPG to feel fulfilled by making things in Unity. You could spend a few days, learning how to code and work with Unity and make some stuff that will impress yourself. I think it's a steep learning curve, but it's not. It's set up in a way where you can make some pretty cool stuff quickly, and that's what I like about it. And yes, it's very delayed.
Your processing speed.
Yeah. What was so and then so the
Instructor.
transition, yeah, so what made me want to be an instructor? So I think I've always just enjoyed helping people and kind of um, showing people things. I've always been very inquisitive. Um, I don't know. I've never really specifically wanted to be a teacher or anything like that. My girlfriend is a high school teacher, and that never sounded appealing to me.
What grades does
Um,
she teach?
high school, so like 11 and 12 English.
Okay.
So I mean, that's it's cool, but I've my mom was always like, I could picture you being some kind of professor or something, like the way you explain things. And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe what she means by that is that I'll spend a lot of time really deep diving into something and learning how it works. But apparently, I'm also good at explaining things in a way that people can understand and breaking things down into a simple way. I'm really of the mindset that if I can figure out how this particular thing in Unity works, I can make anyone figure it out. I'm not that smart.
Also, I will say, you are incredibly approachable, and all of our instructors are. Yet I find that I don't know you super well, but I can talk to you like we're friends. And I think that a lot of learners, when they're meeting you for the first time, feel the same way, that
Hmm.
you're a peer in a good way. And you're really mentoring them. And maybe it's also because you're youthful and look young. I don't know, but there's just something about you that's very, very approachable, and it feels like learning from a friend, talking to a friend, not necessarily someone who's like an authority figure, but in a good way. I mean that in a good way. Do you kind of incorporate that into your teaching style, like kind of these maybe natural inherent gifts, or what would you call your teaching style?
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that, the approachable thing. That's, I mean, one of the things, that's one of the words I would use to describe my teaching style for sure. Approachable, relaxed, maybe. I don't want to say informal, but it's kind of true. Like I don't know. I try to be really conversational and explain things with metaphors and just I just try to explain things in a way that I feel like I would like to have them explained to me. Like I don't know. It's just how I learn. I try to sort of reverse it. And I also try to point people in the direction of how I explore and learn things too. So in class, I mean, anyone who's had me in class knows that I'm constantly opening up the Unity manual and the scripting documentation. And it's instead of just saying, we do this because I remember this is what you do and you should memorize that. Um, maybe some people can deal with that, but that does not help me when a teacher does that. So I really try to explain the thought process every time and how I get to that point of we're using this and we got there like this. And programming a lot of the times is just opening up the manual and figuring out the right path to get there. Like we have to use this tool, and then it's all laid out there what we can do with this tool. And yeah, the documentation and manual is very important.
And actually, something I didn't mention earlier, but it's really sinking in for me now. This is really inspirational and should be an inspiration to all of your learners that not that long ago you had no clue how to use Unity, and now you're teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're learning as you go, as well as we all do. Your skills are always laddering. We'll stick with that metaphor. And people know that you can't just download new knowledge into your brain. People understand that, and yet I think they're really hard on themselves when it takes them a while to pick things up. And I do think it's actually really inspirational that you were an art kid like me and didn't necessarily know anything about this industry, and you just kind of took it upon yourself to learn one day. And you did, and now you're teaching, and we not a ton of time has passed, and here you are.
Yeah, it's true. I think yeah, that could be inspirational for sure. A lot of I feel like a lot of skills could be sort of related to that, like your I don't know, playing music. I actually relate that to learning how to make software a lot. In both cases, you have to sort of sequester yourself and just do it a bunch of times and repeat. Repetition legitimizes things in your head and makes yeah, you got to do things over and over again to get comfortable with them. And I feel like that's how I learned how to play guitar as a kid. And I think that same mentality is what helps me learn software programs like After Effects and Unity and things like that. Is just have to be genuinely interested and keep on doing it.
Yeah, and it's I've heard the comparison before. It's like learning languages. Obviously, we know there are coding languages, literally. Music is also a language, and it's almost like there's something about the way your brain is wired for language learning that makes you interested in these different fields.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm actually like laughably bad at learning other like speaking languages. Like when I go to like Quebec or something, I cannot do it. I get laughed at even though I learned French in school for 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Even like even people that don't know French that well will laugh at my pronunciation of things. I don't have that knack in particular, but
I don't either,
yeah,
but I think it's because my hearing's not so good. So I can't
really.
like pick up on nuances.
Hmm.
But let's maybe think of this differently, because if we're talking about code, we're talking about music, there's also a written component. So let's not think about like the speaking, the hearing. What about learning new languages in their written form? How are
Yeah.
you with that?
Same kind of way, to be honest. I'm just
Why
I
do
would
we
love
call
for
it
that.
that then? Jeez.
No, the cool thing about programming with talking to a computer with a programming language is that uh, I want to say that's more rigid. If you can speak Unity, you can't speak French. There's I don't want to give people the impression that coding is objective here or rigid, because it really can be an art too. Or, it is. There's 1,000 ways to talk to a computer and tell it to do the same thing in different ways. And a lot of that is, personal preference, how you want to do it. But my point here is um, there's a lot of autocomplete and reference and things like that, to be able to help you piece together how to do what you're doing, so you don't have to memorize as much when you're writing code versus learning a language and speaking it. You really have to be able to recall a whole bunch of like really objective data for learning a written language. I think, like, what's the word for this? And when you're programming, you still do, and the more you do it, the more you do recall things, and like how you know what what class does this and has this in it and things like that. But a lot of it is laid out and more objective, and it's kind of helped along a little bit. I don't know.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It's like, yeah, there's like predictive text.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess there is for speaking languages as well, but it goes a little bit further with programming, actually.
Okay. Just by the way, I've seen that there are a few questions in the comment section. A lot from David. We'll get to those near the end. I'm gonna ask you my next question here. Because you're an instructor with us. That's what we've been talking about. What are some of your favorite moments or experiences so far at Circus Stream in actually getting to teach learners? Are there any highlights that come to mind? Any students that come to mind? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the coolest moment so far, and I've only completed like one development cohort and one design cohort, so I don't have that much to draw from yet. But in the development cohort, we did this thing called a game jam for our final project, which is basically like a 24-hour film festival, but in video game form. So in a 24-hour film festival, everyone shows up and you're given a theme, and maybe like a theme, an object you have to incorporate, and a quote that has to be in it or something like that. Like, you have these parameters, and they're like, okay, now that you know the parameters, you have 24 hours to make this movie go. And a game jam is pretty much the same thing. You're given a prompt, you don't know the prompt beforehand, and you make a game based on that prompt with your team. So our last couple of weeks of the development cohort were that we broke everyone into groups, and everyone made their own final projects. And seeing the result, like what people came up with, and my two development cohorts was ridiculously cool. Um, because you could, like, I don't know, from my perspective at least, you could clearly see like the little the tools and like the way of thinking and the, I don't know, the little components that I was teaching all mismatched and shuffled together in different ways, and every group had a very different final project, but you could see the elements that I had taught in there, and that was very humbling and cool to see that sort of full circle. It's sort of like yeah, I don't know, maybe I just had a couple of really talented classes, but it was almost like affirming that, like, yeah, what I'm doing worked, because these people did learn how to use Unity in this 20 session course. It was very impressive.
Yeah, I saw some of those projects, and I gotta say, I know exactly what you're talking about because when I was teaching drawing to adult learners back in the day, back in the day, yeah, people would start to draw like me, and it was really satisfying seeing like, oh, my techniques, I'm actually teaching them. What?
That's awesome.
And it sounds like that's kind of the same for you. You know, you're going through the course, you're teaching people, you're hoping they're learning, but not everyone actually shares what they're working on. There's always a few people who are quite vocal about what they're doing and sharing their projects, but not everyone does that. And then in
Mhm.
the end, you can see what everyone's doing, and you're like, oh, they're getting it, and I showed them how to do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. It was very cool to see what everyone came up with.
Hmm. Do you have some on your end?
Something I could share. No, but I would direct people to the latest demo day presentation if they want to see some of that stuff.
Yes.
I think there's a couple that there's at least one that came from one of my cohorts, but the point still stands. They're all great. All the demo day presentations. That was, yeah. You were there. You were watching it. That was amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just do a super quick plug for
Go
anyone
for it.
who's watching now or going to watch later. Demo day. This is not a requirement of any of your courses, but we highly encourage you to participate in demo day. This is where you basically show off your projects. We have special guests critiquing them. David was at the last one. David in the chat. It is so good. So if you want to take a look at what any of our learners have been working on, whether they're in the design course or the XR Dev course, just simply go into YouTube, type in Circuit Stream Demo Day, and there's a whole playlist. So that'll give you all a good idea of the kinds of projects that people do. And some of those projects were part of the game jam that Mitch is talking about. I want to kind of pivot a little bit here. So, and I think I know exactly how you're going to answer this question because everyone answers it the same way. But, um, you've completed 2 cohorts so far, as you've said. Um, but that's like a decent sample size. You've chatted with a lot of learners by now, and also you do have one-on-ones and office hours and things like that. In your experiences, what do you think separates really the way the question's worded? I want to be careful with how the question's worded
I
because
think I know what the question is, but
yeah, what separates really great students from good students? And what I mean by the words great and good is basically like people who are successful in achieving whatever goals they set out for themselves when they joined. What separates the people? What's the difference between the people who do really well by whatever their own personal standard is versus the people who just kind of got through a course?
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's like a lot I can say that's specific to our courses. Like what I'm thinking kind of applies to pursuing anything in life. It's sort of uh like if you're driven enough, you will eventually get there and be a good X, whatever you want to do. In the famous like artists and stuff that we see, I think a lot of them are
You and
there's
I
not a
are
lot
on
of
the exact
prodigies.
same. Yeah, you and I are on the exact same page right now. I knew you were gonna say that.
Is that
So,
what everyone says?
well, I was thinking of that analogy. So the thing that everyone says is if you're self-driven, self-motivated, have a lot of passion, desire, things like that, you can learn anything. And that's really what separates
I think
the
that's probably true.
yeah. And then with what you were saying just now with artists, people are always like, why is it the old ones who are successful? Because those are the ones who stuck it out. Those are the people who are still making stuff. Everyone else gave up.
For sure.
Everyone gives up too soon. So take that into the weekend, everyone. That's your Friday afternoon lesson. Don't quit too soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. Like playing in a rock band. I'm a big fan of like the music scene in Southern Ontario here, and the bands that get more successful, you can almost spot them when they're smaller because you talk to them and it's like this guy really wants this. Like this guy's going to be a rock star, and that's like his only trajectory in life. And you can just kind of like tell that is what they want to do, and they're going to stop at nothing to make that happen. Yeah, I think it's sort of cross-disciplinary for sure.
Okay, so now when a learner of yours is falling behind, they reach out for help. What sorts of methods do you have to help a person get back in the right mindset and catch up if that is their desire in that moment? How do you kind of help people who are struggling?
Hmm. I think it probably depends on what really they're struggling with. Most of the time, I don't really. It hasn't been a common occurrence for me that someone has reached out and they're like, "I'm so far behind in the course. I need, I need extra help
They
catching
reach
up."
out to me.
Yeah, I guess I'm not totally sure. Maybe I just haven't been around long enough to see that so much. Um, but I feel like if you need to catch up in the course, it's really probably have to allot more time to it. Um, the Something that I find about learning a new skill like Unity, um, I feel like passively watching your instructor do things and just copying their moves is only so productive. And that goes for, learning anything. If you're watching a YouTube tutorial about how to do something in Blender, I feel like watching it and copying the exact motions, at least for my brain, um, isn't the same as remixing what you've learned and figuring it out yourself. Um, I, I feel like it almost uses a different part of your brain figuring out which tools I have to use, as opposed to when you're going through a tutorial and or learning a specific thing in a course and it's all laid out. A part of the learning experience is already determined. I think a lot of your part of learning how to do something is sort of planning out the path to get there. And in a tutorial, it's very like when I'm teaching, I have notes beside me for the core or for that particular session saying, okay, you gotta nail this and this and this in this hour. When you're developing something yourself, you don't have that. You just mess around and try different things until you get what you want. So I try to make students aware of that because a lot of them might think that that I don't know, people who do tutorials are some kind of superheroes who can sit there and just bang out this thing with no thought process, but really the thought process was done in advance. So you shouldn't get discouraged when you compare yourself to your instructor, because in reality, when you go to make something yourself, it's not like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. The lessons are all pre-planned. There was some practice involved. And it's so you being a musician, me being a visual artist, it's the same thing. When you're just learning for yourself, you know, you learn songs, you learn chords, you learn songs that someone else has made already. For me, I learned how to draw by tracing. And this is really good when you're just trying to get into it and you're trying to build your confidence.
Great analogy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it reaches a point where it's like, well, am I an artist because I can copy something? Am I a musician because I can play someone else's songs? Or do I need to start making my own stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, there is types of visual art and music that are based on sampling things and remixing them, right? And that can be art in itself, and that also does apply to programming, right?
Because it's the remix, right?
Everything is a remix in some way. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want to see here because you've covered so many things. I want to see what's still on this list here that we just have not touched on at all. And then we can get to the questions because we actually only have about 20 minutes left. This has been a quick convo, it feels like.
Oh yeah. Should I ramble more and pad it?
No, no, but we're doing good on time. We're doing good on time here. So random question here.
Okay.
What's your opinion on the future of metaverse and real-time 3D? What do you think is the next big thing in our lives?
I'm not convinced the next big thing in our lives is going to be something metaverse-y. I mean, Apple's going to come out with some kind of head-mounted wearable headset. Is everyone going to wear that every day, every hour of every day? I don't personally think so. I think the tools that we teach with, you know, augmented reality and virtual reality, I think that's going to increasingly become integrated with our lives, those sorts of technologies as they mature. But I think that'll happen in more organic ways. I don't think there's going to be some kind of smartphone-esque revolution where suddenly we're wearing these things on our faces. And I could totally be wrong. Well, in 2032, we could look back at this video and I'll sound like an idiot. I'll sound like an absolute idiot right now.
We'll feel old then.
Yeah. Oh man.
David just said organic computing. Is that I'm not super familiar with the term organic in this context. So when you say
neither am I really.
Oh, okay. David, what do you mean? Post a follow-up. You just use the word organic as well, Mitch. So that's why I was asking if it was.
Oh, well, what I meant in that context was instead of like arbitrarily putting XR into our lives, I think it'll creep in the ways in which it's most useful.
Oh, yes. It'll organically be part of our lives.
Yeah. Like a good example of that is how Google Translate introduced a feature where you can point your camera at a sign that's in another language and have it live translate. Like that's a form of AR, and I would say that's a pretty organic integration, right? It's not like we got some organic computing, real-time holograms, biochemical usage of interfacing with cyborgs and stuff. So Elon Musk has this company called Neuralink.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if it's really his thing or if he just puts his name on it or something like that. But like brain interface computers. Oh man, I don't know. Will people be into that in our lifetime? I'm really not sure. I think the most realistic like thing in the short term that we could see impacting our lives, like a big technology revolution is some sort of AI that that makes art as good as humans, right? I don't know if you're familiar with Dolly, the AI program that you give a text prompt to, and it can spit out a bunch of images that look really good. Like a lot of them look photorealistic. So if you say like a bear riding a shark on the moon, it can piece together. It knows what a bear is, it knows what a shark is, it knows what the concept of riding is, and it can piece all that together and do it in a bunch of different styles. So you could say a bear riding a shark on the moon on a black and white television, and it could do that, right?
Okay, so now here's the question, philosophical. Is it art if there isn't a human touch?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's something that is probably going to have to be decided in like legally pretty soon. Like in court.
Yeah.
Because could someone make a supercomputer that just makes all the art? Now I own all the IP kind of thing.
I feel like, my opinion time, I feel like AI is only going to go so far before people revolt and are just repulsed by it because it's so uncanny valley. And you see this, if you want to go with our art and our music kind of analogies, it seems that movements always get so far and then there's a rebellion against it. And so like there was this period of time where, you know, all modern, all like space age, new, all this stuff was like the thing. And then there's kind of a course correction where people are like, we miss humans, let's do away with all of that. And then like slow living, cottage core, all of this stuff becomes a thing.
You know, I'm surprised that hasn't happened with smartphones yet. Are
Yeah,
people
you want a
not
brick?
No, I mean, are people like eventually going to be like, you know what? I don't want access to all the information all the time in my pocket. No, wherever I go. Like I could picture some sort of revolution where people are like, I'm going smartphone-less kind of thing.
Return to nature. Like
Yeah.
these things are so cyclical, and ultimately they're on a ultimately they're on a trajectory like this. But I don't know. I just think maybe this is me being very optimistic. I don't know, but I just feel like humanity wouldn't allow for something that would replace us in that way.
Well, Dolly is so good that the creators of it, you have to be a researcher to be able to use it right now because they're like putting there's already a whole bunch of restrictions on it for like what it can make, but they're kind of, I think, afraid of what it could do if it were just publicly accessible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Kind of extrapolating from that technology, though, I could picture a future where instead of having Spotify, it already almost feels like this. Like maybe 30 years ago, we had like the MTV generation, right? Like everyone had some sort of common baseline for the art that they consume. Everyone would be familiar with a bunch of different, would be familiar with certain movies because there's only a few big movies that year or something like that. But now there's so much art to choose from. I feel like it's getting noisier and noisier, and
Yeah.
something
We're
like
in an age of pluralism, it's called.
pluralism. Okay, I didn't know that term, but like Spotify is great because it has this algorithm that's really good at figuring out what you like to listen to and pull that out of this noise and give you this curated playlist of things that you like. So if we kind of extrapolate out from that, and then technology like Dolly, is there going to be a future where I can just be like, yeah, play music that I like, and it can just generate music on the spot that's ideal for just me?
I see a super dystopian side of this as well, which is already happening, which is people living in this echo chamber of, oh, opinions that line up with mine, and these are the only ones I see, I'm right.
Yeah, that's totally a thing. Yeah.
Not to get political on our circuit
On our
stream.
nice chat here, Arky.
Yeah.
I wonder if like movies could be like that too. Like if you can generate an image from a text prompt in 20 years, are you going to be able to be like, play a movie about this, and it can just generate a movie on the spot? Like, I don't see why not if it's already making these awesome images from just text. I think that's got to be the big next big thing. Maybe not the next big thing, but
A thing.
that's what I go to. Like
When we're
that's sort of the
grandparents.
direction we're headed. Sorry if that's a little dark.
This can be a dark topic, though, is the thing. There's a lot of skepticism, and I'm
a big fan of Black Mirror.
Yes. Yeah, I am too. But I mean, it's crazy that those things aren't necessarily a stretch. And even something like, again, we'll keep it PC, but things like deep fakes, like that is just so weird. It's such a weird world.
Yeah.
And then to think that someone could make something like that of you and that could impact your life.
Yeah. I mean, that's very related to the Dolly thing I'm talking about. Same kind of technology, right? So it's almost like the people that are making these algorithms have a responsibility to put those restrictions on, but it's almost like the equivalent of like the atom bomb or something. Like if it falls into the wrong hands, it could be bad. If there's some general purpose AI that anyone can use and it's really good, anyone can generate a movie of anything from just tapping on a keyboard a little bit. Scary future.
Yeah, it's highly problematic. But actually, I don't know if this is connected, but because this is not necessarily my industry, but what I was thinking about when you were saying making a film and like being immersed in this film, it made me think of Unreal Engine and how they are filming or collaborating with Mandalorian.
Yeah, that used Unreal Engine. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they kind of do like a mix of there's a little bit of a physical set, but where they would previously have a green screen and then you could just put anything you want where it's green, they actually kind of went backwards in a way. It's really interesting. So before there was green screen, there was this thing called rear projection. So if you see a really old movie where it's like, that looks like a crappy green screen, I can tell that's fake. What they would do is have a big white screen and then film the backdrop and then project it on the screen behind the actors. So it's kind of the same effect as a green screen, but it's before they could do it. They just did it analog like that. So if someone's driving in a car, but they need the car to be in a studio, they would just project that behind them, the driving through the city part. Mandalorian almost goes back to that, in that they're in a big spherical screen, and instead of a green screen, the screen is displaying the environment that they want, and that's better than a green screen because they the light from that screen, from that environment, can spill onto the actors and the real physical objects and make them really look integrated in that, which is a challenge with green screen.
It looks better because it has analog in that way, looks better because it has basis in reality. Whereas this green screen, you're right, there's reflections. Yeah, that's just where my mind went when you said, "Oh, we can just type something in and there's a movie."
Yeah.
Maybe because David's saying the LED screens. What if this is something that becomes like part of architecture? And you just, play me this movie that I made up, and it just happens in your living room.
Oh man, that's very Blade Runner-esque, if you've seen that movie. But yeah, huh. I don't see why not. You could just have your walls be screens. This is getting very dystopian.
Yeah. So on that note, let's talk about something totally different because I saw a question earlier. This is a totally different question.
And David said, "Oh, don't get me started," which must have been in reference to talking about AI.
Yeah, our dystopian future. Kyron, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name totally wrong here, my friend. I was wondering if it's possible to make 100K a year working with Unity. What are your thoughts on the matter, Mitch? Speaking of the future, let's talk about making money.
I mean, yeah, definitely possible. It's a pretty sought after skill set. I think being someone who can work with a 3D engine and make it do cool things. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the best the best point of advice about that kind of thing because as you've heard from the beginning of this, only 2 jobs, right? So I don't.
But so actually, maybe I can help with this a little
Yeah.
bit because I am working with the career services for our boot camp, our Unity developer boot camp. And so just to the honest answer is yes, you can. Starting salary is going to be between 50 and 60K. And that is just the reality. It is what it is. So your first job's not going to be paying you 6 figures, but eventually you stick with it. It absolutely can. So
Senior devs definitely can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not unheard of. It's not even necessarily unusual, but you won't be making that right out of the gate. So just have your expectations set there. And 60K is still quite respectable for a starting salary. That's by no means minimum wage. So let's see what here. I'll remove that. Let's see, David, you had so many questions. But I'm trying to pick some. Do you see any here that you wanna answer?
Oh, David had some ones at the top. You don't compare prefabs to movie clips? Question mark. That's oh man, that's so true. Yeah, movie clip in Flash is basically a prefab in Unity. I've noticed that analog myself. Also in Premiere, there's this thing called nested sequences, and I always think back to Flash, like, oh, this is like just right clicking and making a movie clip in Flash. Anyway, that's sorry, very specific and nerdy there. What is your favorite asset that any Unity student should use? Oh man, that's so tough. A lot of the best assets end up getting bought by Unity and just integrated into it. So there was a time where I would have said like, oh, you got to get Text Mesh Pro. Now that's part of Unity. Or, oh, you got to check out Pro Builder. Now that's part of Unity. I feel like they've built up a pretty good baseline of just things that come with it for free now. And one isn't jumping out at me there. Oh boy, just another question.
Yeah, I'm skimming over all of David's questions because I think some of them are just kind of in response to what we were chatting about. David, just by the way, I love that you brought up Star Wars very early on in the chat.
It was your destiny. Star Wars or Star Trek? I've watched all of the Star Wars, and I would have to go. I'd have to say Star Wars, but the more I read about Star Trek, the more I think I would probably be a Star Trek guy. Just Star Wars is like it's more flashy and not as deep as Star Trek seems. Like Star Trek is more about humanity, I think. But what do I know? I haven't watched it.
Here, I'm gonna put this one on the screen.
How many ways are there in order to create a prefab? I mean the only way that comes to mind. Like the most common way to prefab a game object into so what Chris is asking there is in Unity there's these things called game objects um, that make up pretty much everything in your scene. Like if you have like a cube or a light, that's a game object, and you can make it into this thing called a prefab, which is basically breaking it out of the scene into its own data file. And yeah, I mean, the only really way I do that is I just drag and drop it out of the scene into the project window. So maybe I don't fully understand the question there. James asked, what is your favorite VR game you've helped develop and why is it Hammer Hands? It's definitely Hammer Hands. That's
You have to explain that because I don't
just
know what
objectively it's the best VR thing ever created. I don't think it needs further explanation. No, it's James's Game Jam project.
Oh, there you go.
Fan favorite.
Here, question here. We'll take this one from Jacob.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
How'd you stand out when applying for entry-level Unity jobs? So something to keep in mind, and I'm not sure if I've maybe even talked to Jacob a little bit about this before, but something to keep in mind is that the first people that see your portfolio aren't necessarily going to be the most technical people. So I think it's a good idea to make a portfolio that looks really cool and is flashy and can catch anyone's eye, rather than something that's really technically challenging to make, but a recruiter might not understand what's so great about this, right? So I guess really what I'm saying is to get through that first level is you want to make something that everyone can look at and be like, wow, that looks awesome. And yeah, I mean, on the resume itself, putting in some keywords that are related to the position, making sure that you check all the boxes there in your resume, that always helps too.
Keywords, and that's a really great point because speaking of AI, a lot of companies use like algorithms now that will pick out keywords, and so you might be saying the right thing using synonyms, and yet this machine won't pick up on it. So
there's even a reverse AI where you give it the job posting or something like that, and it'll tell you what you have to put in your resume, or you give it both. I am not too familiar with it, but I know that's a thing. I just forget the name. So there's when there's a cool AI for something like creating deep fakes, there's always going to be the opposite. You know, an AI that can spot that, right? So you can, if companies are using AI for hiring, you can use AI right back.
And I love that other point that you made, and we can end on this point because I know you got to go. We still have a whole Friday ahead of us here in the office. But I love that you said create your portfolio for essentially the layperson, because that is likely actually going to be who's looking at your work first. So you may have the most technical, amazing work, but it might not stand out to the gatekeeper, the company gatekeeper. So be creating work that is, would you say, like, calling it general or simple would be a fair way to put it? Or like, if you could just like distill this into a soundbite.
Yeah. I mean, ideally you want to make something that's like technically impressive, but that doesn't mean much if it doesn't also look cool to everyone. There's a lot of things that I think can go underappreciated to a layperson. So you want to make sure that what you're making is still flashy if it's gonna be in a portfolio. So it's not necessarily having to do one or the other, right? You can it could just be a matter of just being mindful of that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So you want to be aware of the technical skill that you're demonstrating, but also don't sacrifice on aesthetics.
In software portfolios too, you might have like a video of the thing, or have like a playable demo, but you can also write a bunch of paragraphs explaining what makes this thing cool. What was a challenge? How did I overcome that challenge?
Like an artist statement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think we're all about the comparisons to other art forms, aren't we?
Yeah, because it works.
Yeah.
It's all kind of universal in a way. So it works, and I like it as kind of like the thesis of this conversation.
Yeah, bringing it full circle.
Yeah. So on that note, thanks to everyone who joined and asked really awesome questions. This will live on forevermore on the YouTube. So feel free to rewatch, reference it. Mitch, what are your final words?
Go try out Hammer Hands. Best VR game ever.
Where can people find Hammer Hands?
I don't know. Ask James.
James, when this is posted on YouTube, put it in the actual YouTube comments, not in the chat here. But yeah, actually link to it. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, he's on his desktop.
Gotta get that out there. Thanks so much for having me, Arky. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Everyone have an awesome rest of your day. Have a great weekend, or whenever you're watching this. Enjoy your life. Oh my gosh. Whatever. Bye, everyone.
Bye.